that's in this box, I have shipped all over the United States, Mexico, and Canada, and it tells a pretty important, pretty strange story, to be perfectly honest. It uses a jar, a brass jar, and would you just, ma'am, look at that. Just do whatever you want, look at it, stick your finger in there if you want. You don't feel anything odd in there, do you? Look down this side, do you see a magnet? Do you see, it's just an empty jar, right? Okay. I'm going to give this to the most mature looking person in the world because I don't trust this. With you, young lady, I wouldn't trust you for 1 minute with this. It's a knife. The knife is not just a regular knife. It is an unusual looking knife. But this is going to represent something else. We have a rope that I'll... and all of these things tell a different part of the story. What's inside there, man? Rice. Rice. You're absolutely correct. It's rice. The rice is... There's a piece of rice, kernel of rice. How much is that worth? You couldn't realistically come up with any mathematical formula to tell me how much a single piece of rice is worth. Even if you were starving to death, you'd still starve to death if you had a single piece of rice. You could add up somehow by the pound how much this jar of rice is, or this canister of rice is, divide it out by the number of maybe hundreds of thousands, or I don't know, maybe millions of kernels of rice, and say, oh, it's worth 1/10000000th of a penny or something. You could probably come up with that formula. But could someone pay you 1/10000000th of a penny? No, because they don't make currency that small. My point is that an individual kernel of rice is kind of useless. It has potential, but it's useless because it's one thing. And it's so small we can't really measure it. On the other hand, if you owned all the rice in the world, would you be a happy person? You'd be a fat person too, maybe, because you'd want to eat all that rice. I don't know. You'd have a lot of money. And watch what this rice will do. This is going to make the janitorial staff absolutely ecstatic. I'm going to begin to fill this jar. Full of rice. All right? Not quite fully yet, is it? I'm scared of you now. It's the knife that did it, right? Yeah. All right. Fill it full of rice. Stick your finger in it so you hold it. You feel anything weird? I didn't put anything else in there, did I? No. Just more rice. For the purpose of what we did today, this jar represents a very important thing, as did the rice. The rice represents each one of you. It represents every single person in your community. It represents everybody in your company. It represents everybody in your church. It represents everybody in your country. One individual at a time. The jar represents structure and organization. It could be your family. It could be a group of friends. It could be your company, your organization, your team. It could be your church. It could be whatever. What I'm going to tell you today is that all these individual people, all these individual grains of rice, properly structured and properly organized, can perform a very unusual miracle right here. Not only is the jar strong as your family, as your team, as your company needs to be strong, but it actually has a specific organization. You'll notice this jar has a specific shape, and that's also what helps this trick work. So your organization doesn't have to just be strong. Oh, we all love each other. We all think we're great, but if we're not properly structured, I can tell you right now this won't work either. So there are a lot of things going on here. What does the knife represent? Danger, right? You see a knife like this one coming at you, that can't be good. So for today, we're going to say that this represents a challenge. and a very unusual challenge. The challenge is build a bridge. Build a bridge out of paper and out of twine. How hard can that be? It can be pretty hard. You just built something that took you like 2.5 hours to build, and some of them were ruined in a matter of seconds. So it can be pretty hard. But here's what I'm going to ask this jar to do. I want this jar to cling together, to work together in such a way that this slick little blade is now suspended inside the jar. What's happened here, every one of those kernels of rice have grabbed that blade, pressed against the side of this jar, the structure we've been talking about, in such a way that it actually grabs the blade that normally would just come right out. Now, that means that this piece of rice, and this piece of rice, and this one, this one, this one, all the way down the bottom, every one of them has been reorganized because of my stabbing, her sticking her finger inside there, reorganized in such a way that it's doing its job. Watch what happens when you disrupt it. You just tap it. You scream, oh, the customer wants side rails. Who's the jerk that said that? All you have to do to screw up that communication, just a little bit. And look what happened. Just take your fingers and lift it out. Pull it all the way up. That easy. It doesn't take much for this to go back. All right? Well, watch again. I'm going to restructure this. We're going to get ourselves all set. The challenge comes back, and watch what happens. And there you have it. It grabs it again. And that's pretty crazy. One thing, look at this. And once again, bam, I'm going to tap against the side of the jar, a disruption in the communication between this rice and this rice and this rice, so they're no longer talking. Lift that out. That's pretty weird, isn't it? Yeah, yeah, that's because I'm a weird guy. Ask you away. Yeah. One more thing I'm going to show you, and this is where I even get a little nervous. You know, you can be a CEO of an organization, you can be a president of a company or of a country, and you can have all the faith in the world in you're getting nervous, aren't you? In your organization, in your team, but there are times when you're going to ask it to do things that seem especially challenging, and when those times come up, you're going to get extremely nervous. You know what? If everyone is communicating and working together, you've got nothing to worry about. To the extent that, I'll do it, young lady here. Again, I just